Whether it be this guy, or you guessed it, even this guy, dollar for dollar tariffs is the strategy being employed by the political class in Canada against Donald Trump's tariffs. Now, Donald Trump, it seems, has his change of heart, and he's adopting the same strategy. What will this do for steel and aluminum, for example, in Canada? It'll actually make things worse. Ladies and gents, welcome back. We're talking about trade imbalances. We're talking about all of this today. This has been the situation that has been looming for some time now. Donald Trump came forward with tariffs, 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods, as a threat for Canada and Mexico, by the way, to shape up when it comes to their border security and overall bad things that were happening at the borders. Now, that was one thing, and then Donald Trump announced steel and aluminum tariffs on Canada, or actually on every country in the world. Now, that has been seen as unfair by Canadians in the Canadian media, Canadian news. No matter where you look, you'll hear about how unfair that is. So Donald Trump has employed a new strategy. It seems he had a change of heart. He posted this on X, actually. Normally he posts on True Social and then everybody reposts it on X. No, he put this out on all platforms. This is his new strategy on trade. He says, on trade, I have decided for purposes of fairness that I will charge a reciprocal tariff, meaning, however, whatever countries charge the United States of America, we will charge them no more or no less. So dollar for dollar tariffs. This is what we've been hearing across the political class in Canada in response to any tariffs that come up from the Trump administration. For purposes of for the purposes of the United States policy, we will consider countries that use the VAT system, the value-added tax, which is far more punitive than a tariff, to be similar to that of a tariff. Sending merchandise, product, or anything by any other name through another country for the purposes of unfairly harming America will not be accepted. In addition, we will make provision for subsidies provided by countries in order to take an economic advantage of the United States. Likewise, provisions will be made for non-monetary tariffs and trade barriers that some countries charge in order to keep our product out of their domain. Or if they do not even let U.S. businesses operate, we are able to accurately determine the cost of these non-monetary trade barriers. Now, this is, I'm guessing, referring to the banks that are not allowed to operate on Canadian soil, but Canadian banks are allowed to operate on American soil, which, interestingly enough, TD was fined billions of dollars for money laundering through that bank on American soil. In some cases, it is fair to all. No other country can complain, and in some cases, if a country feels that the United States would be getting too high a tariff, all they have to do is reduce or terminate their tariff against us. There's no tariffs if you manufacture or build your product in the United States. For many years, the U.S. has been treated unfairly by other countries, both friend and foe. The system will immediately bring fairness and prosperity back to the previously complex and unfair system of trade. America has helped many countries throughout the years at a great financial cost. It is now time that these countries remember and treat us fairly. A level playing field for American workers. I have instructed our Secretary of State, Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of the Treasury, and the United States Trade Representatives to do all work necessary to deliver reciprocity to our system of trade. Now, this is an interesting new strategy put forward by Donald Trump. Now, Kirk Lubimov, who's always got really great things to say about trade, balances, fairness, all of this stuff, he posted this saying, this is similar to what was agreed by the League of Nations 90 years ago. There needs to be fairness to trade and currency devaluations. I wrote about this in the history of tariffs in the US and current affairs here. I'll leave a link in the description down below. Go check out the article. It is fantastic and very insightful. Now, this has been the rhetoric ever since we heard about Donald Trump's tariffs coming to Canada from all politicians alike. And here's Pierre Poilievre talking about this.
We must retaliate dollar for dollar, carefully aiming those tariffs at maximizing the impact on American companies while minimizing the impact on Canadian. We must maximize the impact on American companies while minimizing the impact on Canadian consumers and businesses.
So this is the strategy that has been put forward by Canadians, now being adopted by Donald Trump. Now, what does this mean for Canadians? Well, here's a list of tariffs that we have had historically for a long time on the United States. Just to be clear, these are tariffs Canada imposed on the USA years even before Trump ran his first mandate. Dairy products, 270%. Cheese, 245%. Butter, 298%. All other agricultural products, chicken, 238%, sausage 69.9%, barley seeds 57 to 57.8%, industrial goods, copper 48%, aluminum 45%, steel 25%. Now these are two that are contested right now because Donald Trump said he was going to put a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum. Now this was a big issue. All the political class said we're going to do dollar for dollar tariffs. That would mean they would have to lower their tariffs. This is, for all intents and purposes, higher than what is being imposed on Canada at this point. Consumer goods, cars, 45%, TVs, 45%, eggs, 163%, wheat, 94%, bovine, meat, 26.5%. This is all sourced by Global Affairs. Now, there are many other tariffs, but these are just some of them. But this is where we are in Canada. Now, some people might say, oh, well, the 25% tariffs on dairy, this is for other reasons. Now, I did post this one out there. In Canada, 250% tariffs on milk and dairy and all these other products as a protectionist scheme against the USA and other countries entering our market. I want to put this myth to rest. It's not because of growth hormones. And I had Dr. Sylvain Charlebois on the podcast to talk about this, and he put this one to rest. Absolutely.
I mean, generally speaking, the quality of dairy products in the U.S. is very good, and they often use that argument of BST. And BST is that growth hormone that is used. It's allowed in the U.S. and it's disallowed in Canada. So it's all true. But barely 2% of farmers in the U.S. will use growth hormones, and it's not for the human chain at all. And so if you go to the grocery store in the U.S., you will not find dairy milk coming from cows that were fed growth hormones. So it's a false argument. They're often using the argument saying, well, Canadian milk is superior. Well, do you have any evidence of that? There is no evidence of that.
There is no evidence of that. And that's really where we're at. Now, this has been used as an excuse for a long time, but I think Legault let this one out of the bag when he was talking about this. At the recent Washington meeting of the premiers, the Canadian provincial premiers, this was brought up about the dairy tariffs. Would we be able to budge on, some of the tariffs that we have on the United States? How could we show any goodwill to the U.S. On lowering trade barriers?
No, I just want to say a few words on dairy. In Quebec, we are against changing the management of the offer. The reason why we have that is to protect our regions, all right? So we don't give any subsidies to milk producer. So the only thing we do is we manage the offer, and it's a way to protect small farms in all the regions. So for us, It's not negotiable.
It's not negotiable, he says. Now, this doesn't show goodwill. This doesn't show good spirit towards making things fair across the board. Of course, 250% dairy tariffs are in place to protect Canadian farmers that can't compete. Pick any product on the market and use the same logic. Honestly, should we put crippling tariffs on the consumers? We're talking about the consumers in Canada of every industry that can't compete with more efficient producers abroad. Consumers are paying the price here at home for food, and in a time when food costs are already too high. If dairy was 250% cheaper for you personally, would you be sad that the Canadian dairy farmer has to switch to growing wheat or soy or raising chickens perhaps? Also, if another country is willing to subsidize their dairy farmers, their taxpayers are paying to serve you up a glass of milk. This is the argument, another argument that's brought forward, that Americans subsidize their dairy farmers to make it unfair. Now, Donald Trump is addressing this, but at the end of the day, if the American taxpayer is going to pay for food to be produced and then send it over to Canada, it's actually just making our lives cheaper. At the end of the day, that's what it would be. So if they're subsidizing their farmers, the taxpayers are paying to serve you up a glass of milk. Why would you argue with another country making food cheaper for hungry Canadians? But this is where we're at with this. Now, I wanted to put this at the end here. This is DC Durano. His name is actually Rogan O'Handley. Great post here saying, I know this tariff battle has got Canadians seemingly pitted up against Americans, but I want to make something clear for the record. Our beef is not with the Canadian people. It's with the liberal Canadian government terrorizing the Canadian people. Tens of millions of Americans appreciate the Canadian truckers for what they did to destroy COVID protocols worldwide. We are now fighting your hostile government to help liberate you. Remember this, because Americans do respect us. Americans do actually have our best interests in mind, whether it seems like it, whether it feels like it in the moment. I know there's a lot of fervent stuff about America and booing the national anthem, all of this stuff, but I do want to put this forward. The sentiment in America is actually they hope Canada will do better. They know that we're not doing well under this liberal regime, and I think that we need to see more fairness moving forward in our trade doctrines. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.